Hello, all, and welcome to the first live version of this show. This is Card Subject to Change. Now, if any of you are wrestling fans, you'll know that anytime you go to a live event, in very fine print at the bottom of the docket, it says Card Subject to Change because, well, back in the day, they'd advertise a wrestler showing up in your hometown. You'd buy tickets to go see that wrestler, and then they wouldn't be there. But anyway, so it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke. Card subject to change. So today I'm going to kind of go into a couple things that are really starting to irritate me in the wrestling fandom because it's same old, different day. And in a lot of ways, I've been really thinking about what I want to cover here on my channel. And, a lot of the fandoms are already pretty well talked to death. I mean, you see a situation and it's already been covered by 15 videos. Star Trek, Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, etc., etc. The one thing that a lot of people don't talk about within our community is wrestling, because there's not a lot of us wrestling fans around. But for those of us who, are wrestling fans, modern wrestling is something to make you want to either cry, laugh, or shake your head. One of the three. And quite frankly, I'm going to talk a lot less about the actual wrestling today and more about what's happening within the wrestling world that I just wish would go away. It needs to go away. It just does. And what I speak of is, on one side you have WWE, and on the others you have, well, if you want to go real niche, you have New Japan, you have Ring of Honor, which is in total limbo right now, Impact Wrestling, which is a shell of its former self, and then the big one that everyone seems to be talking about is AEW. And this is where I have a lot of my issues. And before I get into this too far, I do want to acknowledge my chat, because there's a few of you who actually showed up, and I greatly appreciate that. I know this is kind of out of left field and not a topic that a lot of people are into. Even Mrs. Canucks is definitely not a wrestling fan. But it is one of my beloved fandoms, even though it's gone through hell over the last little while. But to take a quick spin through chat, let's see here. We have Thomas Potts, who was first. Darth Haster, welcome both of you. Of course, Mrs. Canuck, welcome, my love. And we have the Austinator, who also has an awesome wrestling channel. Please do check it out. If you do have a couple hours or a couple minutes to spare, go check out the Austinator. He does some pretty cool wrestling things. He's been on this show a couple of times. The Multi-Gunman, welcome. Always good to see another Canadian. And we have Real Waden Nation? Wade Nation. There we go. I'll get it eventually. Oh, yeah. I can't even say that on YouTube, Multi-Gunman. So, AEW. If you pay attention to social media, you'll be told that it is a better product than WWE. It's going to put WWE in a business. And anytime Tony Khan, which is the owner of said AEW, talks, he says that he's a better product and he beat WWE. All right. So this is where I'm going to be the voice of reason. And if anybody, this is what's kind of led me to do this. I actually, watch a couple of the wrestling channels. Cultaholic, What Culture. I've recently unsubscribed from from a couple of them because I can't stand it anymore. Which basically if you listen to any of the major YouTube channels or any of the major publications about wrestling these days, 9 times out of 10, they diminish WWE and yell about how WWE is doing terrible things and it's boring and the storyline is crap and they're not pushing this wrestler and they're not doing that and blah, blah, blah. And AEW is doing all these tremendous things and AEW is the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah, okay. So recently there's been a couple of shocking things that have happened in the wrestling world. One, CM Punk returned. Oh, yay. CM Punk. Yeah, CM Punk. Daniel Bryan switched from WWE to AEW. Oh my goodness. These are big things. The problem is this. When CM Punk joined AEW and Daniel Bryan, everywhere you looked, oh, it's a different world. WWE is screwed now. They're going to go out of business because they have CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. Here's the problem. I've been a wrestling fan since I was about 6. So I lived through the Attitude Era. I lived before the Attitude Era. Hell, I watched the Screwjob live. The Montreal Screwjob? Yeah, I had that pay-per-view. And I was pissed and I didn't like Shawn Michaels for years. But that's besides the point. Here's the thing. Everything that is being said now has been done before. And WWE is still here. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. 2012, I think. When Kurt Angle left WWE and went to TNA. No, 2005, 2006. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, Kurt Angle leaves WWE and goes to TNA. When that happened, a lot of wrestling fans says, how could WWE be so stupid to allow such a wonderful talent of Kurt Angle to go to TNA? Sting was in TNA too. And they didn't put WWE out of business. Although I will give TNA credit, they've done more than Tony Khan because they actually went head-to-head. Lost miserably, but did go head-to-head with Monday Night Raw. Lost miserably, but that's besides the point. It had something to do with them hiring a certain writer that shall not be named because he's an idiot. But nowadays, we have a problem. And Tony Khan needs to shut up. And I know this is a fan telling a billionaire to shut up. But here's the thing. Tony Khan has come out and said some very stupid shit lately. Such as 2 weeks ago, WWE SmackDown, the highest rated wrestling show on television, bar none. Whether you like it or not, SmackDown is the highest rated wrestling show, bar none. Was moving to FS1, which is a subsidiary to Fox Network because of the playoffs in baseball. So Tony Khan comes out and says, we're going to beat them because Vince McMahon, I guess, decides that he's going to run an extra half an hour, which pulls into their Rampage show. And we're going to beat them. So WWE gets more ratings, more people in the ratings than AEW, but AEW still claims the victory because they won in the damn demo. Really? The damn demo. 18-49. They didn't win by much, but they won in the demo. So therefore, he beat WWE. The stupidity of this statement is insane. The other thing that these idiots like to do is they like to go, well, they beat them in the demo Monday Night Raw. Their other show, AEW's other show, is this stupid thing on TNT called Dynamite, and somebody needs to take some dynamite to that show because I have unfortunately had to watch that shite. Anyway, so they'll go, oh, well, we beat them in the demo. Okay, you idiots. You beat them in the demo. Monday Night Raw is going up against Monday Night Football, you idiots. So, of course, you beat them in the 18-49 demo because the NFL took half of it, you morons. Anyway, I'm sorry. I got a little hot there. But they will go and they will tell anybody who will listen that AEW is going to put WWE out of business. Here's the problem with that. AEW can only claim to have beaten WWE in the damn 18-49 demo 3 times. That's the only thing that they're doing that anywhere competitive with WWE. Globally, WWE trounces AEW. On a global reach, WWE has way more is seen in way more countries, is in more countries for live shows than AEW is. AEW is an American-based wrestling program. So I'm sorry, they're not even competitive. Financially, WWE made more money in one show than they did for the entire year. And yes, I am talking about the controversial Saudi Arabia show. The Saudi Arabia show brought in WWE more money than AEW has made in the last 6 months. As controversial as it is, WWE does two Saudi Arabia shows a year, and they make more money in that show than AEW will make all year long. Just saying. The other problem is Tony Khan is a fan, and that's not a bad thing. The problem is he is the living embodiment of what a mark. Now, for you non-wrestling fans, a mark is a wrestling fan to the extreme. And Tony Khan acts more and more like a mark. For one, he doesn't understand. If you take a look at history, Vince McMahon has never played fair a day in his life. Not a day in his life has he ever played fair. Vince McMahon will not go on social media and tweet to Tony Khan. As much as Tony Khan would love that, he won't. Vince McMahon will not go on national television and bring up AEW unless he's asked. Because why would he mention his competition? That doesn't make any sense. You don't bring attention to the people you're trying to compete for viewers with so that they go, oh, this AEW thing? Oh, well, Vince McMahon knows about it, so I must go take a look at it. No, Vince McMahon isn't going to bring it up. What Vince McMahon will do, however, is Vince McMahon will cut into your bottom line. Let's take a little history lesson, shall we? Back in the days of the WCW, and for you non-wrestling fans, WCW was a wrestling company that kind of went tits up. But anyway, mainly because of the AOL Turner merger. But that's besides the point. That and they had Vince Russo. Oh, that hurts. I can't even say the name. The idiot writer on payroll. So the WCW back in the day was trying to expand their pay-per-view market. Vince McMahon decided that he didn't like this idea. So what Vince McMahon did was he didn't go on a TV or he didn't say anything too much. What he did was he went to the pay-per-view provider and told them, You want to hold WrestleMania on your pay-per-view providing company? Very good. You have to be exclusive to WWE. If you promote this pay-per-view from WCW, which is running on the same day as my WrestleMania, on your pay-per-view company, then you cannot have WrestleMania. All the pay-per-view companies abruptly dumped WCW because they didn't want to lose WrestleMania. That is how Vince McMahon does business. He doesn't play nice. And he sure as hell doesn't deal with social media. I'm sorry. It's not his forte, not his generation. So we sit in a world right now where you have a company that is starting out. They're just 2 years old, just a little bit more than 2 years old, AEW. And they're doing everything that TNA did wrong. They're doing everything that WCW did wrong. And they're trying to claim that they're better than both companies. And that they're going to put WWE out of business. For non-wrestling fans and for football fans, let me break this down for you. For AEW to put the idea of AEW putting WWE out of business is just as preposterous as college football putting the NFL out of business. Some people may argue that college football is more popular than in the NFL. And in certain senses, they are correct with certain groups of fans. But the college football will never replace the NFL. The NFL has too much money. The NFL is a homegrown name in the United States, and up here in Canada, if you talk football, you're either talking CFL or NFL, and most often you start with NFL. It's just the facts. Same thing could be said in wrestling. If somebody mentions wrestling, the immediate thought is WWE. WWE has been around for too long. AEW is still in the minor leagues. They're on TNT, yes, granted. And to give you an idea of how much Tony Khan is talking out of his ass 90% of the time, when WWE decided to, had no choice to move to FS1 because of the baseball playoffs, Vince McMahon decided that he was going to extend SmackDown for a half an hour, which of course cut into Rampage, because Rampage is from 10 to 11 on Friday nights. And he was going to go commercial free. Well, once this was announced, Tony Khan said, well, I have more money than Vince, so I can do this longer than he can. He wants to go commercial free, I'll go commercial free. Okay, interesting. What he doesn't mention there is his dad has more money than Vince McMahon, not him, but that's okay. That's another story for another day. He's living on daddy's money. Oops. Secondly, about after the show, he only was able to go commercial free for one match. Why? Because TNT said no. Wait a second. Didn't you just say you could do this longer than Vince McMahon? You were richer than Vince. And then his next comment is, I'm very grateful for TNT for allowing us to go commercial free for one match, but I really don't have any say on whether we're commercial free or when the shows go on. That's TNT. Wait a second. Didn't you just tell us that you're this rich billionaire who, by the way, football fans, owns the Jaguars. Anyway, weren't you just gloating that you could outdo Vince and you could go commercial free for as long as you wanted, and now you're telling us that you can't because the big bad TNT superstation said no? Well, what the fuck? Talks out of his ass. And everybody who has talked out of their ass, from Eric Bischoff to Dixie Carter, has fallen under the boot of WWE. Whether you like WWE or not is irrelevant. Does WWE make perfect content? Fuck no. Does WWE fuck up wrestlers every day of the week? But here's the thing. WWE is a globally traded company. AEW is not. WWE is a global company. AEW is not. WWE, if they wanted to, could pull SmackDown and Raw off of Fox and USA tomorrow and not miss a beat, because WWE has the network, or Peacock, which is an absolute disaster. But anyway, Vince McMahon doesn't necessarily need Fox or USA, but he has them because they pay him a shit ton of money. Fox paid an exorbitant amount of money for SmackDown. USA paid almost as much for Raw. And everybody's focusing on three things that are wrong. You can't look at it like that anymore. Everybody's looking at ratings. Ratings haven't been relevant in about 10 years. Sorry, it's just not relevant. And if you need proof of this, since Loki's in the chat, I'll state this. Ratings haven't been relevant for 10 years, and if you need proof of this, Star Trek Discovery is still on the air. Anyway. So ratings are fucking irrelevant. Because WWE makes its money in merchandising. It makes its money on the TV show itself from Fox and from USA. And it makes its money in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis' trips, as bad as they are, because, well, let's face it, it's a little controversial that they have 2 shows there a year, even though Saudi is not known for their great diplomacy and stuff. But anyway, WWE makes money hand over fist. WWE is the leader in sports entertainment. And AEW can sit there and claim that they are going to put WWE out of business. Well, guess what? It's been said, and it's never been done. WCW said it for years. They came close. TNA said it for years, and they didn't come close. Anyone who has gone head-to-head with Vince McMahon is almost out of business. If you look at TNA right now, which is now Impact Wrestling, I don't know. I did a cleaning of the thing. I'll get that fixed in a bit, JJ. So WWE is just too big. Not to mention, WWE hasn't answered to the fans in 20 years. They haven't been answerable to the fans in about 20 years. They're answerable to the shareholders. A little while ago during COVID, Vince McMahon and co. got in a whole bunch of shit for laying off wrestlers. Now, on one hand, yes, it was a dirty thing to do. But here's the thing. Why was it done? For the shareholders. It was done for shareholders. That's it. It was to boost the stock. It was to give the shareholders a dividends. And that's it. It's just business. Shitty business, but it's business. Tony Khan can barely keep a football team winning, never mind a goddamn wrestling company. And by football, I mean both soccer and football, because he sucks at both. Because his soccer team sucks, and so does his football team. But that's besides the point. I am so sick to death of wrestling fans pining for the good old days. The Attitude Era is never going to come back. The Monday Night War will never come back. It's never going to happen. It was once in a lifetime opportunity. WWE is not where it was in 95, 96, or 97. WWE will never be back there. I mean, think about it this way. When WCW started beating WWE in the ratings, at that point, WWE was already in financial trouble. WWE was having issues as it was. And they still came back. Vince did what he had to do. And of course, the NWO got stale. Eric Bischoff got stale. And then they, of course, hired Vince Russo. Oh, God, that hurts to say that name. And then, yes, JJ, WWE was WWF back then, right up until the World Wildlife Fund got all pissed off because people were going to mistake WWE for the World Wildlife Fund. Yeah, okay. One had a panda symbol and one had WWF. Sure. All right. Sure. We'll mistake the two. Whatever. That's one lawsuit Vince lost. Anyway, and welcome Mark Damefully Tired. So what ends up happening is this is just stupidity. It's absolutely stupidity. WWE is not going anywhere. AEW is not even on the same league page. And fans get so stupid because they'll sit there and they will yell and scream because Vince McMahon himself was asked not long ago what he thinks of AEW. And he goes, well, I don't consider AEW competition. Which, of course, made Twitter explode because, well, how dare he say that? The AEW is competing. They beat him in the demo. Blah, 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 blah. From Vince McMahon's point of view, they're not competition. They're not competing globally. They're not financially competing with Vince McMahon. Hell, they're not even going head-to-head with Vince McMahon. So Vince McMahon cares more about what the NFL is doing, in my opinion, than what AEW is doing. Because let's face it, let's take a look at AEW for a hard second. CM Punk, the most anticipated return to the ring in many years. Wrestling fans and marks have been waiting for CM Punk to return to the ring for 7 long years. Every 5 minutes there'd be a new headline. CM Punk teasing a return. CM Punk is going to be coming back. CM Punk might show up in Impact. CM Punk might show up in New Japan. CM Punk might be coming back. Over and over and over. It would never happen. CM Punk to MMA. Let's just forget about that failed adventure. Anyway, so then he finally makes his return, and it's to AEW. The ratings went up for all of 3 weeks. And now AEW Rampage with CM Punk on it is back below rating numbers that it was before CM Punk debuted. Interesting. Which is around 500,000. Oy vey. And then Daniel Bryan makes his appearance. Or Bryan Danielson now, because he's not WWE. And it doesn't change much. It doesn't change much. Dynamite barely pulls in 1.5 million on a good day. And that's their main show on TNT. SmackDown does over 2 million weekly, as long as they're not on FS1. But that's because FS1 is on less TVs than Fox Network. I mean, come on. Let's not delusion ourselves. You have a mark, and I mean it to the full meaning of the word, running a wrestling company again. Tony Khan, if you pay attention to his Twitter, says things that makes you want to shake your head, laugh hysterically, or go what the fuck on a 15-minute basis. He decided that he was going to call out Ted Turner for some reason. Mainly because billionaire Ted owned WCW. Tony Khan made the statement, if you need to know how brilliant he is, that if Ted Turner knew half about the wrestling world that Tony Khan does, WCW would still be in business. I got newsflash for you, Tony Khan. WCW is out of business because AOL said so. See, back in the day, TNT and AOL merged. In the merger, Ted Turner lost all of his powers. Ted Turner was the one keeping WCW on TNT. Many executives within TNT, and this has been documented to death, wanted WCW gone. Therefore, during the merger, WCW was slowly gutted. Ted Turner lost more and more power and was no longer running things day to day. And TNT became Turner Network in name, not in practice. That's why WCW went out of business. Well, that, and they made really stupid choices. But that's besides the point. And you could only go head-to-head with WWE for so long and lose, which is what they were doing in 2000. Losing. Badly. That, and they had Vince Russo. Oh, God, Vince Russo. Oh, I hate that idiot. Who somehow still has a podcast. And Mark, I'm sorry, but I hate CM Punk. Not a fan. And the only reason, let me explain that. CM Punk is a great performer. Don't get me wrong. He's great within the ropes. What pissed me off is when CM Punk left WWE over 7 years ago. He did a little podcast with another wrestler who happens to be in AEW, who, by the way, they don't talk anymore, and they're actually suing each other, which is kind of funny. But anyway, back to the story. So he does this podcast where he proceeds to whine and bitch about WWE for over an hour. And one of his complaints was that WWE never put me in the main event of WrestleMania. I deserve to be the main event of WrestleMania. Was one of his big bones of contention. And he whined about this for about 30 minutes. He also whined and complained that how dare the WWE force him to wrestle The Undertaker at WrestleMania because that was beneath him. So for wrestling fans, CM Punk is the man who said wrestling The Undertaker at WrestleMania was beneath him. Yeah, so I'm not a CM Punk fan. I mean, all things considered, he's a great wrestler. I'll give him that. Sucks in MMA, but he's a good wrestler, and he's really good on the mic. It's his strongest position is on the mic. I just can't stand the guy. But that's because I'm an Undertaker fan. And how dare you state that wrestling The Undertaker is beneath you? You jackass. You disrespectful little shit. Anyway, moving on. So, I just thought that from now on, maybe twice a week, I am going to rip modern wrestling to shreds. Because, Loki has Marvel and DC and Disney covered. Our good friends at Echo Base Network, they got Star Wars covered. And amongst our group, Bird of Prey 5 has Star Trek covered. So I think Canuck is going to lay the smackdown on wrestling. And if anybody's got a problem with that, I got 2 words for you. Suck it!